Story time!
The Snowman and the Wish. It was a cold, snowy morning in January. Lucy woke up bright and early. She looked out of the window and saw that it had been snowing. There was loads, and it was still snowing. She got dressed into her warmest clothes, put on her snow trousers, boots, coat and hat. She fed her cats, put on her gloves, and out she went. Lucy adored the snow so much. She ran around the garden with her dogs and got her sledge out. She ran to the top of the garden, which was on a hill, sat in a sledge and tried to go down the garden. It took a few attempts to get it to run fast and smooth, but she did it. She had been outside for half an hour when her big brother Jack came out to join her. He too loved the snow, but hated the cold. They took turns in going up and down the hill, pulling each other in the sledge. They had a snowball fight and started to build an igloo. By this point, Jack and Lucy were soaked and cold. "Let's go get a hot chocolate and dry clothes," Jack said. Lucy agreed, and inside they went. They stripped off their wet snow trousers, coats, gloves, hats, and put their boots on the mat. They went into the lounge to warm up while the milk heated up. Lucy was watching the snow falling heavy to the ground. She couldn't wait to get back outside. Now Lucy was very lucky. She had 2 coats, 2 hats, 2 pairs of gloves, and 2 pairs of snow trousers. Jack just had the one, but he borrowed his mum's gloves if needed. He wanted to stay in and keep warm, so off Lucy went, warm and dry. To build the igloo, she was going to use a bucket and her sledge. She would fill the bucket with snow to make her blocks, turn them out and load them onto her sledge. Once the sledge was full, she would take them over to the igloo and fit them into place. Her dad came out to give her hot chocolate. He had brought himself a coffee. They made a snow block each and sat on it and talked about the igloo. Instead of going back in the house, Dad decided he would help build the igloo. He made an igloo or 2 every winter for the last 9 years. He loved it. 3 hours later, Lucy came running in. She was soaking wet but very excited. "Mummy, Mummy," she called. "Come look, come look." Her mum looked over to her and said, "You must be freezing." "No, Mummy, I'm too hot. Come and look at our igloo." Mum told her that she'd seen it from the window and it was brilliant. "No, Mummy, you need to come outside and see it." So Mum put on all her snow clothes and got Jack to come out too. She shouted for Lucy, but she couldn't see her or Dad. She looked in the igloo, and there they both were. "Come in," Dad said. Mum got on her belly and crawled in. The igloo was perfect. It even had seats inside it, and it felt much warmer than it was outside. Jack came in too and said, "Wow!" He was really feeling the cold as his clothes were still a little damp. Off he went back to the lounge with the fire and a film. Lucy and her dad stayed outside for ages. The next day, it was Build a Snowman family day. It was still snowing, but it was that tiny stuff that takes ages to build up. First, it was Daddy's snowman. He was made from 3 balls of snow. Jack got started and Lucy helped. And when they got stuck with the huge bottom ball, Mum and Dad helped out. The middle ball was made by Mum and the head by Dad. On went the hat, coal for eyes, carrot nose, pebble mouth, and let's not forget his coal buttons and a scarf. This carried on until all 4 men were made. All the snowmen were different sizes, just like the family. They even had enough snow to build a snow dog. This was a family fun day, but it was hard work. Jack and Mum went in, but Dad and Lucy went on to build yet another igloo. This didn't take as long this time, but it wasn't as good as the snow had gone a bit dry, unlike the snow the day before. It was very cold and dark by the time they came in. Hot chocolate all round and a cosy evening in front of the fire. At bedtime, Lucy went to say good night to her snowman, and she looked up at the beautiful stars. Jupiter was shining brightly. Wow, Lucy shouted. I just saw a shooting star. Make a wish, said Mum. Lucy started to say, I wish for, but Mum told her not to, or it won't come true. Okay, said Lucy with a huge smile on her face, and she went to bed giggling. I hope it does come true, she said. The next day, Lucy was up so early. She ran outside to go see her snowman. But it had gone. They had all gone. But where had they gone? They certainly hadn't melted. It was minus 17 degrees. Nothing was going to melt in that temperature. The igloo, that was still there. She ran into the house, crying, Mummy, Daddy, our snowmen have all gone. They all looked out of the window. Mum and Dad were so confused. They had breakfast and went out to feed the animals, and while they were out, they looked for signs of where they could have gone. Dad saw different sized dints in the snow. What on earth had made those? He followed them and called for everyone to go with him. They all looked at the dints and where they started and where they stopped. They stopped at the igloos. Dad looked in one igloo and Lucy in the other, and they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Sat on the stools in the igloo were the snowmen. How on earth had they got in there? Lucy let out a squeal. It came true! It came true! My wish, it came true! Everyone looked at her. What on earth did you wish for? I wished that the snowmen would come to life. It must have come true, or how else did they get in there? Dad looked at Mum. How did they get in there? They all went to look at them. How did they get through the tiny door? It was impossible. The weather was a lot warmer now. It was -5, and it was due to rain later. Had the snowmen gone in to save themselves from the rain? They were all baffled. The snowman had travelled from the garden into Lucy's granny's garden next door. There was a little hill to go down and a ledge. Someone must have moved them. It must be a prank. The snow was going soft now, perfect for sledging, so off they went to find a hill. Hours of fun was had, and when they came back, everyone was tired, wet and cold. This was the best winter the family had had. The next day, the snowmen were back in the garden. What the heck was happening? Dad Snowman had his arms around Mum Snowman, and 2 children were hugging Mum and Dad, and the snow dog was standing up. Dad wished he had taken photos of the last 3 days with the Snow family. Nobody would ever believe them. Was it someone moving them? Dad decided he was going to set up a camera so that they could see what was really going on. The street lights were bright and lit the garden well enough for them to see. Another day sledging? Yeah! It didn't rain the day before, but it was due to get up to 1 degree today. The following day, they had all got up and were excited to see the video footage. They were disappointed. Nothing had happened. Nothing had moved. But why? They looked out into the garden. Why had they moved every night until the camera went up? Could they really be moving themselves? Dad told Mum that he had a plan. He went outside and he fiddled with the camera, and he said to Mum that there was a problem with it. There wasn't really, and it hadn't worked that last night. They went back inside, and today they were going to go to the city to go shopping. While they were out, it started to rain. A very fine light rain, but still enough to melt snowmen and igloos. Lucy was worried that her igloo and the Snow family would be a puddle when she got home. Hurry, Daddy, she kept saying. She got out of the car and ran down the garden. The Snow family had gone. She looked in the igloos, but they weren't there. She was confused. And then she saw something moving in her granny's barn. She ran over and saw the snowman moving. Wow, she shouted. They just looked at her. I knew it, she said. She ran to tell her family. They all came to see, but the snowman was dead still. How had they got there? Ah, said Dad, let's put the shopping away. Really, Dad wanted to go inside and watch the video from when they were in the city. They all sat watching with eyes wide open, and their mouths were gasping in amazement. Wow, the Snow family had jumped their way over to the barn when the drizzle had started. They didn't want to get washed away. They must have been listening to Dad when he said that the camera wasn't working, and they thought nobody would know. It would be their secret. That night, Lucy went to the barn to see if she could see them moving again. But too late. They had gone. She laughed to herself, and she looked in the igloos, and there they were again, sat on the stools. She went into the igloo where the Snow Mum and Lucy, Snow Lucy, that is, were sitting. She shook their twiggy arms and introduced herself. She sat down and explained to them about her wish. Then she went into the next igloo, the same again, with Snow Dad and Snow Jack. She said good night and off she went. In the morning, most of the snow had gone. It had rained heavily overnight. The igloos had collapsed and the Snow family were being washed away. When Lucy woke up, she said what could she do? She pulled on her coat and wellies and grabbed her umbrella. She was upset about her igloos, but she realised the Snow family hadn't moved after she'd gone in last night. Oh no, they were dead! Lucy was most upset. She could see coal and carrots, hats and pebbles on the floor. Dad came out. Oh dear, he said, looked at Lucy with tears in her eyes. Don't cry, Lucy. It's the way that nature works. Your igloos and your Snow family are watering the garden so that we can grow lots of lovely potatoes here in summer. Say goodbye to the Snow family now. But remember, we still have them on video and you can see them any time. Lucy smiled and she shouted goodbye and said thank you to what was left of the Snow family, and in she went. She wondered what she could wish for next time she saw a shooting star.